North Korean leader Kim Jong Un has called on his top military commanders to dramatically strengthen frontline defenses along the border with South Korea, describing the nation's southern neighbor as a sworn enemy and demanding the boundary be transformed into what state media called an impregnable fortress. Kim presided over a gathering of division and brigade commanders at the headquarters of the ruling Workers' Party Central Committee on Sunday, the first known assembly of all division and brigade commanders since he came to power in 2011. Images broadcast by state television showed him arriving to a room full of officers in full dress uniform who rose to applaud as he entered and took his seat at the head of a long table. The optics were deliberate, a rare display of military choreography intended for both domestic and international consumption. Kim told the military officials that a great change would be made in an effort to deter war and that commanding officers must raise their outlook on the arch enemy, an unmistakable reference to South Korea. He set out concrete plans to reshape how the military trains and operates, pressing commanders to ensure that North Korea's armed forces are not just numerically strong, but doctrinally modern. He called for adjusting the training system and expanding practical drills to reflect changes in modern warfare and the development of North Korea's military. Kim also said planned projects should redefine operational concepts in line with the rapid modernization of military and technical equipment and apply them to unit combat training. The instruction was sweeping in its ambition. Projects to modernize the military, he said, should be stepped up to newly define the concept of operations in all spheres. That phrase, anodyne, as it sounds in translation, carries significant weight for analysts watching Pyongyang's military doctrine evolve. Hong Min, a senior analyst at the Korea Institute for National Unification, said Kim's words were not abstract. He said the directive reflects awareness of drone warfare, precision strikes, electronic warfare, and multi-domain battlefields observed in the Ukraine war and Middle East conflicts. Kim's plans also, he added, suggest a multi-domain operational concept extending beyond land, sea, and air to include underwater, space, electronic, and cyber domains. In short, Pyongyang appears to be drawing operational lessons from the war in Ukraine, a conflict in which it has already taken sides. North Korea has supported Moscow by providing troops, and the instructions from Sunday's meeting appear to reflect lessons learned from Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. What Pyongyang's soldiers witnessed on those battlefields, the primacy of drone swarms, the vulnerability of static positions, the speed of precision strikes, is now, it seems, being fed back into how Kim wants his own frontline units to think and fight. This is not happening in a vacuum. Liar this month, North Korea announced plans to deploy new 155 self-propelled howitzers to 3 battalions assigned to long-range artillery units along the southern border this year. These units reportedly feature a striking range exceeding 60 kilometers, a distance that would place much of Seoul and the surrounding Gyeonggi province well within reach of frontline positions. Kim himself inspected the production of the new weapons at a munitions factory and expressed satisfaction with their automated shooting systems and high mobility, stating they would provide a great change and advantage in land operations. The military buildup is part of a broader ideological and constitutional shift. The meeting comes as Pyongyang hardens its military posture towards Seoul and formally abandons decades-old reunification language. North Korea recently revised its constitution to remove all references to reunification with South Korea, cementing Kim's push to redefine inter-Korean ties as relo-nitions between two separate states. South Korea is no longer to be seen in Pyongyang's official framing as an estranged sibling waiting to be reunited. It is now enshrined in law as the enemy. North Korea has also amended its constitution to allow an automatic nuclear strike if Kim Jong Un is assassinated by a foreign adversary. Taken together, the constitutional changes represent a hardening of posture that goes beyond rhetoric. They are now codified into the foundational law of the state. And yet, on the very same day that Kim was meeting with his generals, something quietly extraordinary was unfolding across the border. The meeting took place on the same day the North Korean women's football team landed in South Korea, the first such visit in 8 years, which raised hopes of a slight thaw in frosty ties. It was a jarring juxtaposition. athletes crossing a border that their supreme leader was simultaneously vowing to fortify as an impregnable line of military resistance. And C, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has spent much of his time in office trying to lower the temperature. Lee has sought to reduce tensions since taking office in June, including by dismantling border propaganda loudspeakers and calling for renewed dialogue. But Pyongyang has largely ignored the overtures while continuing to expand its military capabilities. On the 1st of March, 2026, Lee gave a statement to mark the National Liberation Day, where he called on cooperation between the two Koreas and said that South Korea respects North Korea's system and would not pursue ununification by absorption. It was an attempt to speak in language Pyongyang might accept, stripping away any suggestion of Seoul's long-held aspiration to absorb the North into a unified democratic state. But Pyongyang's response has been pointed. Kim Yo-jong, Kim Jong Un's sister and a central figure in the regime, said that no matter what policy was adopted in Seoul or proposal was sent, they had zero interest in. Discussion with South Korea. A South Korean government spokesman said the remarks showed how high the wall of distrust has become in South-North Korean relations. South Korea's unification ministry assessed that Sunday's meeting appeared aimed at encouraging the military while reinforcing ideological discipline and modernization. It stopped short of characterizing the gathering as a prelude to any specific military action, and spokespersons stressed that Seoul would continue efforts to manage tensions and build trust on the peninsula. The larger context in which all of this is unfolding is one of sustained structural deterioration. The two Koreas remain technically at war since the 1950 to 1953 Korean War ended with an armistice rather than a formal peace treaty. Tensions on the Korean Peninsula have steadily increased over the past several years. Every diplomatic initiative Seoul has launched in recent years has met with silence or hostility from the North. Every military move from Pyongyang has been calibrated to underscore that it no longer views the relationship through the lens of reconciliation. South Korean President Lee has warned that North Korea continues to produce nuclear material at a pace that could allow it to add up to 20 nuclear weapons a year. He told reporters eventually the nuclear weapon system necessary to sustain the North Korean regime will evolve into weapons capable of threatening the entire world, including the U.S. Analysts now watch with concern whether Kim's latest military directives could extend beyond the land border. Researchers and security analysts are assessing whether North Korea's new military posture could expand to disputed maritime areas such as the Northern Limit Line. Regional powers, including the United States, China, and Japan, are closely watching security developments on the Korean Peninsula because any escalation could affect regional stability, trade, and defense alliances. For now, the pictures from Sunday's eating tell their own story. Kim Jong Un, flanked by generals, striding through the halls of the Workers' Party Central Committee, posing for photographs with commanders whose units line the border just kilometers from the south. The message was directed as much at those watching from Seoul and Washington and Tokyo as at the officers standing in formation before him. In February, during an event marking the 78th anniversary of the creation of travel, saying the nation's military is expected to widen its fighting front to defend effectively against the enemy. He emphasized this year is a grand year of transformation in which our military's fighting front must widen further and we must struggle more boldly. Sunday's meeting was the follow-through on that promise. The border between North and South Korea, 250 kilometers long, roughly 4 kilometers wide, the most heavily armed strip of land on the planet. It's now officially, in Pyongyang's own framing, a fortress under construction. The football team, meanwhile, played their game.